All right, welcome back to another episode of the Film Nerd Podcast. This is episode 4, and tonight I am joined by a guest. I got to give a quick shout out to John Horford for being my only other guest I had in the summer of 2018. Hope to have him back on soon, but tonight I got Chris Castellani. Chris is a fellow Lansing native. He's best known for heavy and popular presence on Twitter discussing the Detroit Tigers, as well as some University of Michigan football and basketball games. He's accumulated nearly 20,000 Twitter followers as a result of his comically angry yet reasonably critical commentary, most of the time in video format. I actually discovered Chris on Twitter before I had the chance and the honor of meeting him in person, because as an MSU fan, I do love hearing his unbiased takes on Michigan and Michigan State. Growing popularity on Twitter sports world led to him being featured on the Barstool Sports Starting 9 podcast. Chris is currently a co-host of the Brewcast podcast on maizenbrew.com. He's the host of the Lockdown Tigers podcast, and Chris recently started reviewing films on YouTube again, something he did a while ago and picked back up during quarantine.
Yeah.
So, and I've enjoyed following that. Chris Castellani, everybody, thanks for joining me.
I'm happy to be on, man. Yeah, I know, like we were just talking about before we recorded, it's been a whirlwind of a year. That is funny that I didn't know that John Horford was your previous
Yeah,
a
which
member, yeah, a member of one of my favorite sports team of all time, the 2013 Michigan Wolverines.
that's
That's
one of
awesome.
the reasons I brought it up was with you
Yeah.
being such a big Michigan fan. I thought you'd
Hmm.
enjoy that little connection, and
For
I
sure.
actually was just texting John. I hope I can get him back on again soon here, because he's a big movie guy. Loves movies
Awesome.
when he has time. He obviously very
Right,
busy with
exactly.
basketball.
Yeah.
So actually, I want to mention I was just talking to Chris about this before we started here, but Chris and I actually had the chance of meeting right before quarantine. What was that, December of 2019?
Yeah.
Was the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, and Chris and I got to enjoy the movie together with a couple other guys, and it was a lot of fun. But unfortunately, this last year kind of couldn't really do that anymore. So, Chris, how you doing, man? How you doing overall right now?
I mean, I'm hanging in there. It's been obviously a weird time. Been kind of away from the social media game for a while. Though I mean, you're never really away from it. I mean, when you kind of have the jobs that I have with Maize and Brew and with Locked On, you kind of need to have your ear to the ground
Yeah,
with a lot of that stuff. But overall, I'm working through some things, but I'm slowly. It's not going to be, if I do ever come back, it's not going to be some big, all right, here we go again. It's going to be kind of that slow reveal, like
yep,
starting with something like this. So I'm happy to be doing this. I appreciate it.
absolutely. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm some big podcast on YouTube right now. Yeah, I got 200 subscribers on YouTube, and I like to think I get a few listeners. So we'll
Mhm.
see. And I do appreciate you coming on. How has your routine, your life been like since COVID began? And specifically, I wanted to kind of ask you about, we got a movie podcast here and talking about movies tonight. I wanted to kind of ask you, and within your routine, your movie going experiences, how's that's going with, COVID and everything.
Well, it's been both a blessing and a curse in terms of movie consumption. My regular routine, I mean, since I had the initial break, I think a lot of people did, where I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't working, and then I've been back doing my day job for a while, since like June now. But in terms of my film consumption, it's allowed me, and it's one of the reasons I did reboot the movie review channel again, is that with so many things going to streaming,
Oh yeah.
it does allow you to consume more products. That also has a downside, because the first several reviews that I did was for like Capone and The Wrong Missy and
Oh.
Artemis Fowl. And like, I was like, honestly, like of my first 10 reviews, probably 7 of them were movies that would have appeared in my bottom 10 of the year.
Oh.
But at this, right. But at the same time, it's like there are, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in terms of like streaming versus
Yep.
the theatrical experience. I think like I said, it's both a blessing and a curse, because it allows you uh to see things that maybe you wouldn't have the time or the
Oh yeah.
be able to fit in your schedule to see, and several films that I've really enjoyed. So it's a double sided coin.
Yeah, and I don't want to. Some of the things you started getting to there, I want to hold off because we are going to talk about a couple of
Right? Yeah.
the streaming things, because that's a conversation I want to dive into.
Yeah.
Have you been able to go to a movie theater since March of last year? Have you? I know obviously Chris and I being in Michigan, our theaters were shut down for most of last year. They opened up and then they got closed in November again. And then they did open back up again. I did manage to go see a movie around New Year's. That was the last this New Year's, a month and a half ago. So I was curious if you have managed to see anything.
Yeah. I saw Tenet in that little window in
Oh, you
which
did?
things were open. Yeah, I did. I saw Tenet in theaters, and um, again, we'll talk about it in terms of what movies belong in theaters and what
Yep.
movies don't. Like that, I was not going to watch that on a laptop
No.
screen.
Or
Tenet
your
is a
phone.
movie, right? Exactly. Yeah, Tenet was, or even a big screen TV. I think
Yeah.
an experience like that with a director like that,
Oh, yeah.
especially with the IMAX cameras. I saw
Oh,
that in the
for
biggest
sure.
screen possible in the Extreme Theater at NCG, which is
Yep.
in in Eastwood and local Lansing Theater. But besides that, even that, as fun as that was, that felt weird. Like
Yep.
the last time I went to the movie theaters without a mask on was the Way Back, the Ben Affleck basketball movie that
Oh,
came out last March. So yeah, I mean, besides
yeah.
that,
That was
everything.
like that was a movie that I think got screwed. It was like right as things shut down.
Yeah, I think it opened at like number one, and then the
Yep.
box office tanked the next
It
week,
was
and
like,
a
yeah, it
couple
was like the
weeks.
next weekend it closed.
Yeah, which is too bad because it wasn't that bad. It's
No,
an all right
I
movie.
did end up getting to see it on actually this is something I should add to the docket, but I've already got quite a few things. Is Family Video recently closing? That was a
Yeah.
movie I rented from Family Video last summer, and I did enjoy it. So that's too bad
No, it
that
was
that
solid.
one
Yeah,
got
but
shut down.
yeah, that was the last one yeah, I saw in theaters without before all the COVID stuff, and if by the time summer rolls around, I'm sure I'll get back there
Yep.
at some point. But as long as stuff keeps getting put on streaming, I'm going to continue to consume things as much as I can.
Yeah, and that again, that's a conversation because we're gonna dive into that in just a moment here in
Mhm.
terms of the streaming because that has kind of become a big topic of conversation
Big time.
following the world of movies here, especially if you're a big fan of movies. You know, there's that big debate that's raging right now on that topic. So we'll get to that in just a moment here. And in terms of everything else, anything in your routine that's changed significantly in terms of any other movie related things, or just kind of like everyone else, just staying at home and doing what you can for work from home?
I guess the one advantage I will say is I've probably watched more films.
Oh yeah.
That than I would have pre COVID, pre quarantine, which is has been a good thing because
Oh yeah.
even there are those movies I don't like watching, but I enjoy talking about almost every movie I see,
Oh,
and
for
that's
sure.
part of the reason I brought back the reviews.
Well, I guess with that, we'll kind of move on here into more because I feel like we're tiptoeing around it anyway, so we might as well dive into it.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I got a few random topics here, kind of talking about movies with Chris. And first thing I want to touch on is a streaming serve or stream not streaming service, excuse me, a social media app called Letterboxd. I
Yeah.
know that you have an account. I think you started yours fairly recently. Was it right before COVID?
It
Because I
was
thought
yeah, it was
when I met you that you had just created one.
Yeah, because I'd had one for a minute,
Okay.
because it had been recommended to me, and I guess during again like when you had a lot of time on your hands during
Mm-hmm.
COVID, I was going through and checking off all the boxes, checking off all the movies that I'd seen, and posting some mini reviews for them. Mostly it's just ratings. I'm a huge fan of it. What's weird about Letterbox is that like it's not a wholly original idea by any means. I mean,
No,
IMDb's had the same system, Rotten
for a
Tomatoes has
while.
had the same system for yeah. I mean, IMDb's been around forever, but I feel like Letterboxd has really kind of perfected it. It's a very clean looking site.
Yes.
I like the fact that you can rate or do a full review. You can post links to stuff. You can make
Create
all sorts of
watch
lists.
lists. I love
Yeah, exactly.
that.
No,
Yep.
it's a really fun site, and I like that it's I like the social media aspect of it that you can connect with other people. Yeah, I've been using it for a while now. I mean, everything I post, and I also like the fact that they keep the data, they keep the
Oh yeah.
statistics, average ratings, and stuff like that. I think that's really neat. Which movies you gave a certain rating to.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I mean, I could never see myself kind of getting rid of it now. I mean, I think it's almost a necessity at this point.
Yeah, I kind of discovered it myself near the end of college. I and this was kind of another thing I was going to talk to you about next here, but I discovered around 2015, 2016 a whole community on YouTube, a lot of people that review films on YouTube and
Mhm.
create film video essays about movies and things like that. And it took me down a rabbit hole. And within that year, I somehow got hooked up with Letterbox between the people I interacted with on YouTube and on Twitter. And it is like you kind of mentioned, it is more clean cut. IMDb at times becomes too much of a muchness. You know the
Yeah,
quote
there's a
what is
lot of
that?
oversaturation in terms of
There's a
it's a
lot.
crowded website. It's a
Well, and
crowded.
they don't do just movies, right? They got, television
That's
shows on
true.
IMDb as well, whereas Letterboxd, if you go to like their mission statement, if you go to their website and kind of their criteria, they will include miniseries, limited series, miniseries, short films, feature-length films, and they will not do like full TV shows because I've seen people debate this, on Twitter, like, why won't you put Breaking Bad or why won't you put The Sopranos? And they are adamant about it sticking to a certain format in terms of what qualifies to be on Letterboxd. And I do think they keep adding little things. They're not crowding it with too much, but I don't know if you use. There's an app called Just Watch.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've never
That's an
used it, but I've heard
It's
of it.
great. I use it all the time. It's free. It's literally an app that you can type in any movie or TV show you want to watch, and it will tell you where you can find it on streaming, VOD, streaming service, whatever. And they've hooked up with that site. So now if you go to a page in Letterbox, you can see there's like a little tab that says where to watch, and you
Yeah.
click it, and it takes you to Just Watch that app. So they do little things like that. And then there's a free version, obviously, and then they have the Patreon and the Pro version for people who pay for different subscriptions. That adds a few more um, features that you
Mhm.
wouldn't have with the free version. But yeah, I really enjoy using it as well. I'm glad that you like it. Not a lot of people I know use it. You're one of the.
It's growing, but yeah,
Yeah.
I've ever since I got introduced to it, I'm kind of hooked. Yeah.
I think yeah, because I use it to track everything I watch. I love it in that regard. And I know you can do that on IMDb, but I think the other thing with Letterboxd that IMDb doesn't have is IMDb is pretty at this point commonly known to the average person. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
Anyone who's not like like you and I, who's I might watch a movie a couple times a month, that kind of person, maybe once a month. They know what IMDb is, right? It's been around
Mhm.
so long, so it is kind of crowded in terms of a public, users. Whereas Letterboxd, I think, is really people who are like they're really into movies and they're gonna stick on that site.
For sure.
I don't know the average person going on to Letterboxd and looking up stuff about a movie. They use IMDb, right?
Right.
And that's usually the top thing that comes up if you Google search. So I think it is more of a niche in that regard. And I do usually tell people about it, but again, it's something that unless you're someone like you or myself who's really going to commit time to use it, I don't think people are going to use it as much.
Right.
I'll keep us moving along here. Let's talk about YouTube a little bit. So, you started doing reviews again about what
Yeah.
8 months ago, but
Yeah. It's probably April.
you were doing them 4 years before that, I think it was.
Oh, a lot longer. I mean,
Okay, I was looking through your YouTube account. I can't remember how many years it had
yeah, I mean,
been.
I've had multiple over the years, and some I've just deleted out of pure embarrassment because I was 12, But I guess I mean, really, my first video I ever posted to the internet was a review for Cloverfield, which was
Oh yeah,
the film came out January 18th. I think the review was posted January 20th.
jeez, yeah. You remember the date off the top of your head?
Well, that was a big. Honestly, what's weird is that was a really big movie for me
I remember seeing it in theaters. Do you remember the marketing campaign
Yeah,
around that?
well, that was one of the movies that got me hooked on to the kind of the fact that there's more beyond just what you see on the screen. That
Oh,
there
yeah.
can be a viral marketing campaign. You
Mhm.
can have, I remember buying the DVD, watching all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah,
so-
that had a lot of really interesting stuff. I remember in terms of
Yeah,
special
and,
features.
yeah, exactly. And that was a J.J. Abrams project, shrouded in mystery.
That was an
yeah,
early
it's-
one from him, I believe.
Yeah, that was
and Matt
post-
Reeves, I think. was it?
and Matt Reeves,
Matt
right?
Reeves,
since,
who did
who,
Planet
in
of the
my
Apes.
opinion, has since gone on to become one of the best big budget directors in Hollywood right now. I mean, I think what he
yeah,
did
I'd
with
agree with
the
you.
last two Apes movies, really excited to see what he's going to do with the Batman. So,
Oh
yeah, I mean, I've been doing them off and on, and it started out as something that was always a hobby, and you start. I was in sixth grade, and you get older, and life priorities kind of change, but I've never lost the interest in film. I never lost like the passion that comes to seeing a great movie or the
Oh, yeah.
rage that comes to seeing a terrible movie. Is just kind of things got in the way, and with COVID doing what it did, and the fact that there was time on my hands finally, and I wanted to get back to it, and I've really enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, and I love listening to your reviews, man. I've enjoyed a lot of times. I know when you got another one up. I hadn't subscribed to your channel. I was just watching your posts when you put them on Instagram. I was
Mm,
seeing them there, and then I was like, I'm just gonna go subscribe to it because I use YouTube so much. So
right.
I enjoy watching your reviews, man. I
Thank you.
like hearing your thoughts on a lot of, and I appreciate that you do a kind of a wide range of films as well. You're not just sticking with
For
big
sure.
budget stuff. You're picking out some of the smaller things too,
Mhm.
which I enjoy. I was really excited to see your positive review for Promising Young Woman, and we'll get to that here. My last topic is going to be some of our favorites of the year, so we'll get to that in a
Mhm.
moment. But so going on to a topic here. Oh, I guess one more thing I wanted to ask you on YouTube. Do you follow any of the kind of big names who have made a name for themselves talking about, reviewing,
Oh yeah.
discussing film on YouTube?
Many of them, and everyone kind of has their personal favorite, and my favorites. I don't even know if I can call him my favorite, but I think objectively, like the best or the most important is Stuckman. And like,
I was wondering if that's what you're gonna say.
because what's weird is I remember I'd had interactions with him like over a decade ago when he was first starting out, and
Oh, you knew about him that long ago.
yeah,
So
and
you were around the time. Did you watch his latest video about why
with
he
the
quit?
Jehovah's Witness, yeah,
Yeah. So you
and
were
I
probably around the time when he did that then, watching.
one of my buddies, whose name is Blake, he used to have a YouTube channel called Grounded for Life 27, and he reviewed movies, and him and Stuckman became friends. And Stuckman
Really?
actually, yeah, he was around my age. And Stuckman has actually said in one of his previous videos that Blake was one of the inspirations for why he started making movie reviews. And so
That's pretty cool.
I had been told that there was it never leaked that it was because of the Jehovah's Witness thing, but I had been told that there was a legitimate reason why he stopped doing the reviews
Yeah.
originally. But a decade ago when I watched him, I found him very dry. And most people like that when they start off kind of
Yeah.
are. They don't have
You
that
don't have
confidence.
you don't have a personality. You're trying to
Right.
figure out how you want to convey yourself.
How
Yep.
you connect with your audience, get your sea
Yep.
legs under you. And I think really, he's the closest thing we have, in my opinion, and this is high praise, to what just the kind of importance that like Siskel and Ebert had when they were reviewing movies back in
And
the
he
80s.
he would probably disagree with you because those are like his influencers,
For
right? He would
sure.
be like, "Oh, I'm not like them."
But
He seems humble to me,
no,
but
he is. He's a very nice guy.
oh
It's
yeah.
just that I think that there was a time, before YouTube when getting a positive review out of those two could cause a ripple effect in terms of who sees your movie beyond that. I think he
Hmm.
kind of has that power at this point. I mean, he said that like, Jordan Peele was going up to him and saying, "Hey man, thanks for the positive
Oh yeah,
feedback." Like,
because he got invited to the
mhm.
SAG Awards. I
Or
can't remember what event
it
it
was
was.
maybe Critics' Choice, man.
Critics'
I
Choice,
couldn't
I
remember.
think. Yeah, that
But
sounds right.
no, I think, and I just his ability to analyze film, I think is incredible, and the way he connects with his audience. There's a few others that I really enjoy. One is, I mean, in terms of film analysis, it's very good, but it's more humor based and it's lesser known. It's called The Internet's Janitor. I think this guy,
Oh, I haven't heard of him.
he did a piece on Joker that to me was like the best analysis of that film that I'd seen. And there's
I
another guy
will
named
have to
High
check
Top
that out.
Films. There's another one named High Top Films whose
I
his,
don't know if I've heard
his
that
real
one
name is
either.
Alex Hunter, and
Okay.
he posts these videos that are like kind of clickbaity titles. And a
Hmm.
lot of what's I like about him so much is I disagree with a lot of his opinions. Like his biggest video was that, Spider-Man Homecoming was a bad Spider-Man movie. That was a really popular video. And I don't agree with that. I like Spider-Man Homecoming a lot. I think it's a good interpretation of
Hmm.
the character, but he's a young guy and he's like, it's obvious that this is a guy with a real eye for filmmaking. So those are the ones that kind of stand out to me as just the guys that I'm my go-to in terms of their opinions.
Yeah, and a couple that I really enjoyed. Chris Stuckman was the one who
Mhm.
actually I mentioned to you. I kind of got into following YouTube stuff. He was the one I found first. I found in the summer of 2015 when I went and saw Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, I
I
remember
love
he
that
was
movie.
so enthusiastic about
And
it. Yeah.
his review for it like went big on YouTube. It was like featured on like the homepage. I'm like, oh, who is this guy talking about this movie I just saw? And I remember like just deep dive onto his channel, and that's when I kind of that was started the rabbit hole, and I got hooked. And
Mhm.
I really enjoy, even though he can be a bit, you could use the word pretentious, kind of a jerk, but I think he's great. He's another one like you just mentioned. I don't agree with this guy's opinions very often. I think he's kind of a nitpicker, but YMS, I don't know if you
Yeah,
ever
that's
watched
another one.
Your Movie
I know
Sucks.
I haven't gotten into his stuff a ton, but I know a
Hmm.
lot of people who, and every single person has basically said the same thing
Oh yeah,
that you have, is that, yeah, not crazy about his opinions, but the content is funny. I mean,
I like
it's
listening to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's the unfortunate, kind of just reality that we find ourselves in, where nowadays, if somebody has an opinion that you disagree with, that means it's a bad opinion. That means it's an
Yeah.
opinion that shouldn't stand. It's like
Yeah, that drives me nuts.
right. It's like there's guys who have written exposés, and there are those certain films, right, where I'm like, I'm not going to listen to this person if they don't like it, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't need to watch a 90-minute diatribe of why Empire Strikes Back is a bad movie. Like there's some stuff, but there are those certain
Yep,
ones where it's
no.
like I want to hear what this person has to say, and if they lay out a solid enough argument, I'll come back to their channel just because I
yeah.
like listening to them talk.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know we're talking about movies, but I'm really into, I don't know if you dabble into any of the music stuff, but there's a YouTuber named The Needle Drop, Anthony Fantano.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Anthony, he's huge.
And I don't. Oh yeah, he's like the internet. He calls himself the internet's busiest
music nerd. Yeah.
But he's another person who's an internet personality reviewing, art, culture, whatever online. And I really only agree with about half of his reviews, but I still like watching them. I don't know.
He's fascinating.
It's interesting to hear different viewpoints on things. So
for sure. Sure. Yeah.
So let's get into the next thing here, which we kind of started to talk about, and I wanted to kind of move it till now, so now we can just spend some time on it. Streaming services. So Chris kind of brought this up, and we started to mention, obviously the big thing over the last year in the movie industry. If you've paid attention, if you haven't been paying attention, then you might not realize that a lot of studios. The big one was Warner Brothers. Disney's doing it, but they're releasing their films. Not only in theaters, but simultaneously, HBO Max with Warner Brothers announced that it's going to be a month on streaming, and then it'll go off while it's in theaters and streaming simultaneously. Then it'll go off for the industry standard time frame until it can go on physical media.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your kind of thoughts about this? I have an opinion, but I kind of want to hear what you think about this whole. People are very upset about it. They're worried about it, but
I'm split on it. I am, because I want to see a lot of these movies theatrically. I want to see Godzilla versus King Kong in the theater. I want to see the Suicide Squad.
I don't understand who would want to see that like on a little tiny screen.
But at the same time, I also we're a year into this, and I'm kind of tired of waiting. Same with something like Dune, which was
dude.
Was that supposed to come out this Christmas?
Yes, it was supposed to come out December 2020, and they just pushed it a whole year ahead, I believe. I think now it's December 2021.
And I get it with certain films. Like the movie I always use an example for, I always use as the example is, like, it was one of my favorite movies of 2019, which was Marriage Story. I thought that was a wonderful Noah Baumbach's film, a great movie.
I really liked it too.
Yeah, but there was nothing in it that screamed like cinematic, right? Like I don't need to listen to Randy Newman's score in Dolby. Like, and I like that movie a lot. But with these bigger releases, it's going to change the entire, not complexity, but the entire landscape of cinema going forward. And I completely get, like I said, I'm split on it. I really get the frustration by the filmmakers, because we're talking about, I can't recall who directed Godzilla versus Kong, but we're talking about Denis Villeneuve, who did Dune, who's one of the best established directors, probably the last decade. You have Suicide Squad with James Gunn. And of course, Christopher Nolan made his opinions very known. I mean, his relationship, big time. I mean, he threw the gauntlet down. I mean, his
Did you hear the recent news that apparently it's rumored now he's completely cut ties with Warner Brothers?
Well, I think that's true. And I think their relationship is completely severed. And again, like, as a consumer of products, I want to see these things. So I'm not completely lamenting it, but you look at, and I mentioned it earlier with Tenet, you look at somebody like Christopher Nolan, his films are experiences. Those are cinema in their purest form. And the argument, I remember a lot of people were posting, like, when Avengers Endgame came out, there were all these, I still watch them sometimes, all these compilations of people in theaters reacting to the portal scene, just going nuts. It's like
that was a fun experience.
That was a great experience.
Very vividly.
Yeah, and that is something you cannot get out of having 10 people over to stream on HBO
or sitting
Max.
By yourself, like most people do with your family.
Yeah. So I'm okay with it for 2021. Given the current state of things with COVID and how much of a mess everything's been. And, if you held on to everything for another year, the release schedule would become so crowded that financially, I think it would take such a hit on some of these movies that it is probably more beneficial to put them onto streaming. But once we go beyond COVID, I hope we get a relative return to normalcy, and
Yeah.
I don't know if we will, but I do think that the disappointment that's been expressed obviously by Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve was not happy with how they're going about things. Well,
Legendary Pictures, who produced the film, alongside. Well, no, Legendary Pictures, if I remember correctly, produced it, and
mhm,
Warner Brothers is distributing. They filed. Last I knew, they were filing a lawsuit on behalf
yeah,
of, I think everyone who worked on the film against Warner Brothers because they were not. They did not discuss this decision. They produced it, Warner Brothers is distributing, and it was not an agreed upon decision. Warner Brothers said, oh, never mind, we're going to distribute it now on HBO Max, and they were furious.
yeah.
Denis Villeneuve, yeah, like you mentioned, I had heard that, reading some stuff, he's very upset. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
For sure. And I guess the last point that I'll make about it, like I said, I understand the disappointment by the filmmakers completely, and I'll probably watch a majority of them on HBO Max if possible, but yeah, it really is too bad, and that's the okay. I remember I slipped up for a second. I couldn't remember what I was gonna say. The last point that I was going to make about this is that no matter how you feel about it, the way they've gone about this rollout has been poor. I mean,
Oh yeah,
to not get in contact with these filmmakers, they found out about this information apparently like through Twitter. I mean,
yeah,
it's
through
the
through
equivalent
the
of like
news, through the media, yeah,
it's the equivalent of a baseball player tweeting out like, "Have I been traded?" I mean, it's
yeah,
these guys they're finding out this
yeah.
news like in when we are, and you're putting hundreds of millions of dollars into these films,
Hmm.
and you're spending hundreds of hours, man hours to try to make this thing right, and then for it the rug to kind of be and to make
Sometimes
it
years. Sometimes
right.
they're spending years to make those
I
movies.
mean, how long have they been trying to remake Dune?
Yeah.
It's been like almost a two
Yeah,
decade thing.
Lynch's version was in the
80s,
80s.
yeah, and I
80s,
think
yeah.
they announced. I mean, even as late as a decade ago,
I
they were
think it's been in
announcing.
development hell. It's one of those projects that's been, tossed around quite a bit.
Yeah, I think some famous. I think maybe it was Paul Green. I might be getting confused with Watchmen, but I think maybe Paul Greengrass had wanted to have a shot at it at some point. But yeah, I mean, it's a film that's been a decade in development, onto the hopes that they're going to make it cinematic.
Well,
And
and they were supposed to do a sequel. It was only
that's right.
the first. This is like chapter one of two, or two parts where they did only half the book. That's what Villeneuve has said. This movie coming out, it's only the first half. And
Yeah,
they're worried, and he made comments I read somewhere, he doesn't know what's going to happen now, because I think they didn't, it's not like a situation where they shot the first half and then just kept going. I think they
right.
just made one movie, fingers crossed things work out, we'll make part two. And now I think he's worried, this isn't going to make the money back, because this is a
Yeah,
9-figure film. It's $100 million, $200 million movie.
it's and Dune is a property. It's a known property. It has a huge cult following, but
Yeah, but it's not
for the
Star
most part,
Wars,
this
it's
is
not
not Star
Marvel.
Wars. It's not. It's somewhat comparable to Avatar. I feel like where it is it where it's not a wholly original product. I mean,
Hmm.
it's based on a book. Avatar, and I like Avatar, but Avatar is far from original when you look
Oh
at
yeah, it's basically
the
Pocahontas.
right. When you look at the storyline of that movie.
Yep.
But I remember when that came out, there were a lot of people that said, is this a product that people are going to buy into? Is this the type of thing? Because
Hmm.
that was the biggest movie of all time at the time in terms of budget. And basically it's like, this is $1 billion, $1 billion worldwide or bust. And
Yes.
that one worked. What you had with that though was the backing and the mystique of a James Cameron,
Yes.
who had reached that kind of zenith of his career where he could make, basically it's kind of like what Nolan did after The Dark Knight, where it's like you could kind
Oh
of
yeah.
make whatever you want, and people are going to respond to it.
They're the few directors that the average moviegoer could name.
Right.
Most average moviegoers
Yeah.
are not going to be able to rattle off a list of directors. There are most actors and actresses are marketable. They're bankable, right? But there's a small group of directors, and that's, you got a few like that
Yeah.
are marketable.
And Denny Villeneuve is a wonderful filmmaker, but in terms of mainstream, I don't think he's not that.
He's not
Yeah,
quite
he
there.
could get there. He could get there. I mean, on the unfortunate, I mean, Blade Runner 2049, I heard was great, but nobody saw it. I mean,
Oh,
it's like,
I love it, man.
yeah, no,
have you not seen it?
I haven't. No, I mean,
Oh,
I know
you gotta watch
there's
it.
many of people who think that was I mean,
it was, I think
20
I named it my favorite film of that year, which was
17, I
2017.
believe. Yeah, there were a
2017,
lot
yeah.
of people who said that that was like one of the best sequels
Oh,
ever. So
it's
I do
phenomenal.
need to
I
see that.
love the original, but I think 2049, it's it's you can make the argument for it being better than the original. One of
Yeah,
those
I gotta see
conversations.
it for sure.
Definitely gotta check it out, man. Well, staying on this conversation a little bit, so and well, I guess I'll throw my opinion out there. So this is something I'll throw your way, see what you think. I've read some some think pieces, some opinion pieces online, and on some periodicals about what this might mean for the industry. And I saw a pretty positive twist on it, and this is kind of what I think is going to happen. I think what you're going to see is kind of what you touched on. That's why a lot of people are kind of speculating. Is it going to be a situation where a lot of studios are going to continue to release their expensive big budget films in theaters because they got to make the money back? And
Right.
that's the experience people want. Like the majority of people, even the average moviegoer, like you said, you want to go see Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and
Mhm.
Disney movies, and even the big action, the blockbuster, and even some of the smaller action blockbuster films. I want to go see John Wick. John Wick
Right.
4. I want to see, that's not a huge budget movie, but that's a movie I'd love to see on a big screen.
Yeah.
So I think what you're going to see is, they will probably, after this year, I hope, like you mentioned, go away from this format somewhat. I bet you're going to see some streaming services see most people who don't really frequent the theaters are going to watch them more when they can just watch them at home. And then some of those
Right.
movies like you mentioned, like a Marriage Story, or some of the smaller independent films that you can watch it on. Most people like myself, I'm sure you do too, have a decent flat screen TV and some surround sound that you can watch a movie with a good experience at home. And I think what you're going to see is it is going to hurt the industry in terms of the theaters, the AMC's, which I think is already
Yeah.
down the drain.
Yeah.
Celebration,
Filed for bankruptcy, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Uh,
Cinemark or Cinemax, whatever's the Cinemark. What's the one?
I think yeah, Cinemark. Yeah.
We don't have it here in Michigan, I
No,
don't
we
think,
don't.
but it's pretty big in the United States.
Yeah.
But some of those chains, I bet you they're going to have to kind of downsize a bit, and you're probably going to see the rise of more things like the Alamo Draft House, which
Yeah.
unfortunately we don't have those here in Michigan. I wish we did. I hope we do someday.
Objectively viewed as the best movie theater chain in the
And if you
country.
don't know what the Alamo Draft House is, it is a theater built by people who love movies, and their whole intention, I think they only have like 6 to 10 locations in the United States. And their whole thing is preserving the movie going experience. They support, wherever their locations are at. They have food and drinks, and their big thing is craft beer,
Yeah.
craft food, local stuff. And they kick people out of the movies. That's what I love about Alamo Draft House. They're whether you want to call it notorious, I think famous. I think it's great. If you're
Yeah.
on your phone, if you're talking, you're being a jerk, they will kick people out. I don't see that anymore at big chains. And they have a reputation for it, and people love it because of it. So I think it'll become more of a niche like that. You'll see some of these specialty chains. I'm hoping rise with the purity, of the movie going experience that some people will preserve. But you got a lot of average people, average public who don't love movies that much. They go a couple times a year. Pre-COVID, I was going almost once a week.
Yeah.
If I could. So I don't know. See what happens. I think
For sure.
it's a lot of unknowns, but we'll see where it goes. So I'll kind of rotate here a little bit, kind of keeping in with streaming services. So in quarantine, what's kind of been your go-to? I mean, now you're kind of, and it's kind of driving me nuts at the same time. Every studio, every production company is now taking back their IPs, and you got Peacock now with NBC. Paramount Plus was just announced.
Right.
Obviously, you got the go-tos: Hulu, Amazon Prime. You got Netflix, Disney Plus rose in the last year ever since quarantine. HBO Max is now, they've kind of reconsolidated HBO Now and HBO Go into this new behemoth HBO Max that has so many IP. I mean, their properties because Warner Brothers is partnered with HBO.
Mhm.
Another unknown is Shudder. It's all horror streaming service. So yeah, what's kind of your go-to? What are you enjoying using?
Well, you know what's weird is with these services, it's kind of like being an addict. Because I originally I started, I'm like, you know what, I'll just get Netflix and we'll see where it goes. Okay, well, you know what,
When did you first get Netflix? I'm curious.
like
When was?
5-6 years ago. Like it was.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it was
fairly
wild.
recent. I've had
Yeah.
Netflix for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know it took me a while. I mean, it was once I got to college, I got it, and then I'm like, all right, I'm not going to get anything else. I kind of want to watch that on Hulu, and then eventually, I pretty much have all of them now, except for all of the big ones, except for Apple TV. which even and go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. I like Apple TV because that's another one. I'm glad you mentioned Apple TV Plus. But that was one I just recently checked out because a couple of my favorite films of the year, and we'll get to that in just a moment, are on Apple TV Plus. They have like nothing. I think it's funny
Yeah,
that you brought that up because that's one that people are like, "Why would you get Apple TV Plus?" But the couple of things they have, they got a couple quality things on there. My father-in-law is big on that Ted Lasso, which I watched a few
I've
episodes.
heard everyone says it's
It's
so good.
funny, man. I
Yeah,
watched a few episodes with him. It seemed kind of stupid at first, but it's really well done. So I'll
yeah.
be
No,
interested to see what they do.
I'm probably gonna get it or share it with somebody at some point because the new Russo brothers movie comes there in a few weeks. That Cherry with Tom
Sherry,
Holland.
yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that.
which I've heard kind of mixed things about, but at the very least,
Yeah,
I'm intrigued to see what they do post Avengers Endgame world, and I think Tom Holland is excellent. So I want to see kind of his first big. I guess it's not his first because I thought he was very good in Devil All the Time as well. But
oh yeah,
no, I
I like
guess
Devil.
yeah, it's kind of like what I do with all these services. It's like I'm especially posts. I don't know what the first one was to drop. Maybe it was Mank in November, but it's like I just want to see
Hmm.
as many like Oscar caliber or Oscar nominated movies that I can see. And sometimes they're on Netflix. A lot of times they're on Netflix. Sometimes they go to
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. Yeah, I mean, just gotta kind of find the stuff that appeals to you. I can't really say I have like a favorite or a go to. I will say, and you alluded to this a little bit. I think HBO Max, I have a real love hate relationship with, as does as does Hollywood apparently, because I think that in terms of its catalog, it's got to be number one. I mean,
It's
that
unbelievable. What
it's
they
just
have
it's
is unbelievable.
unreal. Yeah, I mean, everything that TV shows, movies, it really is amazing. The problem is, in my experience, it works when it wants to. Like, and I have a pretty good like,
I haven't downloaded it yet. I had HBO Now when Game of Thrones last season was
right, yeah.
on because I watched the final season of Game of Thrones, and then my wife and I kept it to watch the recent season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which came out a year ago, and then we canceled it. So we canceled it right before HBO Max. So you've been having like buggy issues with it,
Yeah, I mean
or
it will run slow on occasion. I
okay?
would like when I was in Florida over Christmas break. And again, this is a condo in Florida where you're not your number one priority isn't internet.
Isn't
But
it? Yeah.
when there was when we did try to watch stuff, yeah, it wouldn't work. And even here sometimes when I'm watching it at home, it'll freeze or it'll just buffer. But it's yeah, again, love hate relationship because there's so much on there. I guess probably the most consistent one still for me is probably Netflix.
Yeah, I like Netflix. A big thing for me in separating some of these is the user interface.
Yeah,
Amazon Prime has some good stuff, but their user interface is so weird. They need to update how you manage and navigate their Amazon Prime Video. And that's when I have a love hate relationship because I also love that Prime Video has VOD. So I have
hmm
a Prime Video account and then I can also rent movies on there too. I don't know why. I haven't looked into it. Netflix still does their old school, how they started renting Blu-rays and DVDs through the mail. I'm pretty sure they still have that. I've never used that. I've always used their streaming service. But I don't know why. I don't know the logistics behind starting up VOD if they're allowed to, if there's a licensing separate licensing thing in order to rent movies. But I know obviously iTunes is an easy way to rent movies as well if you want to rent something if it's not available on a streaming service you have. But I don't. Yeah, I would agree with you though. I love Netflix. I
yeah,
think people have started to complain about its catalog. And it's not Netflix's fault. They're losing
right,
things to their original owners.
right.
The big thing that everyone used Netflix for was a lot of NBC TV shows, and they started Peacock and
hmm
ripped some of their biggest shows back.
It's
You
Always
know,
Sunny in Philadelphia was a huge one for a while, and now that's been gone for over a year now.
and and Hulu is now getting a lot of these shows too
Yeah,
because Hulu has, I think, a little bit more leeway because their catalog they have some good movies. I've had Hulu on and off to watch some movies and some TV shows, but their big thing is TV. Obviously, they stole I believe Seinfeld went back to Hulu.
yeah.
It was always
Oh, wait,
Hulu.
no,
I think.
is it on Netflix? I think it might be on Netflix now. Seinfeld.
No, Seinfeld's on Hulu for sure
Oh,
right
is it
now.
definitely okay?
Because
Yeah.
my wife had never seen like anything on Seinfeld, so we binged the whole thing on Hulu like 2 years ago. And it's still on there because I did another free trial with Hulu recently.
Okay.
But my thing for TV shows, man, I don't know what you do for like live TV, but I have YouTube TV.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that do.
Oh man, I tell everyone to get it because you have unlimited DVR. So like a lot of these
Yeah.
shows you're naming, I just DVR them, and you got to fast forward through the commercials. But like I have Friends, I have The Office, I have It's Always Sunny, I have Seinfeld, I have literally every episode of any TV show that I've
Mhm.
ever enjoyed, DVR'd in my library and YouTube TV. And again, you got the commercials you got to fast forward through, but
Right.
I never have to worry about losing it, which that's another thing. People come to love these shows on a streaming service or a movie, and then it's gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
Which is why I don't know if you can see behind me. I like to buy the things I like, but
Right. Physical media guy.
I continue to preach everyone, man. You like something, own it, because then you'll never have to worry about someone taking it away from you.
Right.
But let's kind of move on here from the streaming stuff, and I want to talk about kind of wrap up our movie discussion. Something I talked about a little bit earlier, but some of the movies we've enjoyed this year.
Mhm.
And I'm not a big fan of the Golden Globes by any means. I think it's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
The Hollywood foreign press or whatever that runs it has been, most of the people who show up to it are drunk when they
Right.
show up to the Golden Globes, and they make a joke of it. But it's still kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd kind of run through here because they did release the nominations for the 78th Golden Globe. So I thought I'd kind of run through some of the big awards here, see what you think, and
Yeah.
then we can kind of talk about because the Oscars came out with some of their short lists, but it's like for nine awards, and it's not really any of the major ones. So
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
we can speculate a little bit from there what we think and talk about some of our favorites of the year. So
Mhm.
drama right now. So this is what they got for best picture drama. They have The Father, which has not really had an official release with Anthony Hopkins. It's supposed to be a really great movie.
The first time I heard about it was Stuckman had it as his favorite
Exactly.
movie of the year. That was the first time I'd heard about it.
That's
I'm
the
sure it's
first time as well.
great. Yeah, it seems like it's picking up some steam now. Yeah.
So and then along with that, another one is Nomadland, which I keep hearing about, but everyone who's seen it is getting screeners or saw it at a festival. So Nomadland
It hasn't come
with-
here. Yeah, we haven't had a chance to watch
Yeah,
it.
with Frances McDormand's gotten a lot of praise.
Yeah.
So then the next one's Mank. You kind of mentioned that. What
Mhm.
do you think about that? You think that's
Uh,
a deserving nominee?
Yes, I liked it quite a bit. It was the one movie I circled at the beginning of the year, being like, if there's any film that has the highest chance of being my favorite movie of the year, and maybe one of my favorite movies of the decade, it would be this because it's.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say
Yeah,
you
yeah.
enjoyed it quite a bit, didn't you?
I did. Well, no, I did, but I didn't love it the way I wanted to.
Okay, that's
Because
why I thought that's what you had mentioned.
Well, no,
that's
'cause
kind of how I felt.
before the year started, I'm like, if there's gonna be a movie that I like is gonna get that 10 out of 10, it's gonna be this. It's Fincher. It's a film about Hollywood, a script his own dad wrote, like everything falling into place, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I think, objectively speaking, it's a masterwork. But I couldn't help but feel I got to the end and felt a little bit
Yeah.
hollow. Like it just didn't quite have.
It was missing the it factor, I feel like.
Yeah, it didn't have that kind of punch that some of his previous films had. Like, I just think that it was kind of, you know what it was? It was what I thought The Social Network might be when I first heard that they were making a movie about Facebook.
Okay.
Where it's just, it's good. It's well written. The difference is, and we'll talk about one of his films here in a second as well. You didn't have Aaron Sorkin's script, and that movie is like a great album. The Social Network is, where you can just watch it over and
Oh,
over
yeah.
because of
It's
how
so
good the
good.
characters are and how good
Absolutely.
that script is. This one,
That one has an energy to it. I feel like
Yeah.
The Social Network. Every time I watch it, it's one that you keep coming back to. I don't feel that with Mank.
no,
I don't feel like I want to come back to it. And while I did enjoy it, I didn't regret watching it. I would recommend it, especially if you're a Fincher fan. And I think it's very well made and it looks great. But again, it's like that energy, that it factor. I think you said, did you use the word hollow? It does kind of
Yeah.
feel. It does feel a little surface level, like there's not that little extra depth to it. I don't
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
right. No, I'm with you.
And then I'm going to skip over one because I'll save it for the last one here. But The Trial of the Chicago Seven's nominated. What'd you think of that one? I know you reviewed it.
My second favorite movie of the year.
So you really enjoyed that one.
I really, really loved it a lot. I think that, yeah, I Sorkin, arguably the best writer in Hollywood. I think what makes him so special is with everything he talks about, everything he writes about, because you look at Moneyball and Molly's Game and The Social Network and now this, 4 films about vastly different topics. And yet you just get the
yeah.
impression he's so passionate about these characters, about bringing these characters to the screen. And I was really
Did Sorkin write Steve Jobs too?
yes, I always forget about which
Yes.
I think that was that was at a point where, like, once Steve Jobs died, CBS is running hour-long specials, and I think it got to a point in like 2015 where people were a little bit Jobs out. But when that movie, because it was like we got
The Ashton Kutcher
Ashton Kutcher movie,
too, yeah.
which was, I'll be generous and say so. We got it wasn't that good. It wasn't that good.
Yeah.
We got, he was Barbara Walters' most fascinating guy in like the year he died, and then it'd been several years, and then like they finally got it right. And not a whole lot of people saw it, though. I thought it was great. Yeah, he wrote that as well. Him and Steve Jobs are like really good friends. So that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that part. But yeah, I that was a movie that I remember really enjoying. I haven't seen it in a long time. I was disappointed with the Trial of Chicago 7 personally. Okay. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed parts of it, but I don't know. I watched it when it first came out. I'd have to go back and look at what I wrote because I did put like a formal review on Instagram and Letterboxd for it. I'd have to go back. But it's and this is one of the reasons I didn't like it. It didn't feel like, again, kind of like Mank, like something I would want to come back to, something that would stick with me, and it hasn't, because I remember the general, I remember it had a big all-star cast, and Sacha Baron Cohen kind of gave a memorable performance. But other than that, I remember kind of being like, as I was watching it. I thought the better courtroom drama that I'm wondering if the Golden Globes didn't give any love to because they weren't sure how to nominate it was Steve McQueen's Small Axe anthology. And it was
haven't seen it.
Oh man, it's on Amazon Prime. Gotta check it out. Which it's kind of an amazing project. Steve, do you know about it?
Is that the one with John Boyega?
That was one of them. So he made 5 movies.
Oh my God. Full length features?
5 feature films, and he called it an anthology film series with the overall title called Small Axe. They are all different films. They are all different casts, but they each kind of are in the general. They all connect by the time period, being from the 60s, 70s, 80s. They all connect that they center on West Indies immigrants in London during those time periods, and their unique experience within those time periods, and they focus on a couple different true stories. And the first one is called Mangrove, and that's the one that's kind of received the most praise. The one with John Boyega is the third one. That's the one I enjoyed the most. It's called Red, White, and Blue, and it's a true story about a cop, a black man in London becoming a cop, when at the time that was like did not happen. Right. It was very frowned upon from his community, his family. But the first one, Mangrove, is a true story courtroom drama. And I'll let you check it out, but it's on Amazon Prime. That was a courtroom drama that came out that I thought was better. But again, there's been some organizations that have named the whole anthology series the best film of the year.
Yeah,
which
that's a tough one.
It's created some controversy. Some organizations, some critics associations have picked one. Because all 5 films are very good. I personally think the first 3 are the best. The 4th and 5th film are okay. The whole thing's worth watching. But it is kind of it's a difficult thing to categorize. So I'm wondering if that's why they left it out.
For sure, yeah, I get that.
And then the last one they got here is Promising Young Woman, which where do I have that on my list? I know you had mentioned it was one of your favorites of the year. I'm still working through my watch list. I have it as my 3rd favorite film right now of 2020.
It's my favorite. I still need to see. I need to see Nomadland, and I'm gonna watch.
I'm probably gonna end up qualifying as 2021 because it's like official U.S. release is gonna be 2021. That is a good point. That's what I'm gonna do with it.
Are you gonna do the same thing with Judas and the Black Messiah?
Exactly. Yep.
Well, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I go back and forth with that, I guess. But I'll see. Yeah, I'll talk to a few more people and see if
what I do with my list is I typically for me, everyone can do whatever they want to do, but for me, what I do is I stick within the U.S. wide theatrical release, because I have Just Mercy as my number 2 film of the year. Technically, its U.S. wide theatrical release was in January of 2020. If it doesn't receive a wide theatrical release, then I go by its U.S. streaming release. If it's like a smaller film that received a stream. So that's how I do it. I don't count the film festival releases because I can't see those. I don't count the limited because that's typically Chicago, New York, L.A.
Right.
So I don't count that. But yeah, and again, with some of these films that, because they've extended the qualifying period for the Oscars, some of these films that are being released, they're being released 2021, but they're calling them 2020.
Yeah, whatever. No, I get that.
It's goofy.
Promising Young Woman is my favorite movie of 2020. I don't know what else I'll qualify for that, but I mean, I bet it'll probably stay there. I just think it is a film that I think under lesser people leading it could have gone horribly wrong.
It's a topic that I think was handled just right.
Right, and it's a character that I think was handled just right, and that's really,
Yeah,
I mean,
Carey Mulligan's terrific.
the film just in general works because the main performance works. I mean, she carries the whole thing, but I thought it's weird because in my review I said I don't know if I could watch this again, but over time I'm gonna watch it again, and I look forward to showing it to other people.
Yes, the reaction.
And that's why a film that it reminded me of in that aspect. Well, slightly different subject matter. Obviously, genders are switched. And I think the reactions to a certain extent have been similar. Was kind of how people reacted to American Psycho when it came out, where you have a film that was
they have two very different intents, but I see. Yeah,
for sure. But you have a main character that you there's something off about them. It's in different. It's different because in this one the main character is a victim, where in the other one, the Patrick Bateman, obviously despicable. But you have, there's a lot of there. Yeah, I mean, as despicable as it gets. But at the same time, it's a movie that really strikes you with its tone, because you have trouble at first kind of picking up on what it's
very
going
slow. It creeps up on you.
But I think the moments there are those moments of very, very dark comedy that work, much like they did in American Psycho. And again, you have a lead performance that I thought was just otherworldly.
She was nominated for Best Actress for Golden Globes. I hope she's nominated Best Actress for the Oscars as well.
That's the thing, is it's not. I bet she will, because, and this is true, people try to deny it, but the Oscars have forced themselves into being political, right? I mean, there is a large, and there's there's entire series on YouTube that talk about how basically in the 80s and 90s, the Oscars became something that you campaign for as opposed to just the best films. And if you don't
have money to campaign, then your movie gets overlooked, basically.
Right. I mean, Harvey Weinstein kind of spearheaded that. Obviously not the worst thing he ever did, but still, it's not good either. So, and that's such a small movie. But I think given the subject matter, and she deserves it, it's an amazing performance. Absolutely. I think she will get nominated, but it's not so much an Academy type film. It's not. It takes a lot of risks. It is smaller. Carey Mulligan's. There's a lot of famous character actors in it, but nobody who really headlines the thing.
I know there's cameo from Christopher Mintz-Plasse. Yeah, I don't remember how to say his last name. And is it Adam Brody?
Adam Brody. You know what's weird cameos. Is I noticed this as well, and all of the like the Predators. I guess I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a lot of guys who are cast in that movie who have played maybe not heartthrobs, but kind of innocent, likable guys and other things. Like you have Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who's to an entire generation was McLovin. You had Adam Brody, who was on the OC.
Yep.
You had Chris Lowell, who was in The Help. Max Greenfield, who was on New Girl for a long time. Bo Burnham, who's like very famous YouTuber.
And again, we won't spoil anything. I won't go to spoilers
for sure.
One, but
I do wonder if those castings were intentional, because one of the big
I would think so,
because one of the big themes of that movie, and this isn't a spoiler, this is established early on, is kind of that loss of innocence and the idea that like anybody could do this, anybody could be capable of this, and the idea of kind of taking these guys to an entire generation of people are known as kind of being the innocent heartthrobs and making them into the characters that they are in that movie. I thought that was it was a movie that had a bitterness to it that I quite enjoyed, similarly to how I enjoyed Joker the year before, where it's not as mean-spirited as Joker was, but I think in terms of its message,
it might be just as, if not more, abrasive though. Yeah. Especially, I won't spoil anything for anyone listening, but the ending in particular, kind of like what you mentioned with the almost self-referential meta aspect with seemingly intentionally casting some of those actors. Yeah, I would say the same thing about the ending, in terms of what the director, the choice there, seems to very much be pointing a finger, or holding a mirror up to the audience type situation. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. I think that that film is brilliant. I
Same here.
think it's great, man. I can't
And
wait to
I'm
see what else
really,
that director does.
I was just about to say, I'm really interested to see where she goes from here. Because the last time I was I think it's her first feature film, I believe.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
and the last time,
Her
and
feature directorial debut,
yeah, and
Emerald Fennell.
the last time, and sometimes you end up with sometimes you have a director that has one thing to say and they say it really well. Like I remember when, and obviously weird comparison, but I remember when District 9 came out and everyone was like,
Great
this
film.
Neil Blomkamp, oh, it's awesome. This Neil Blomkamp is going to be a
There was
legend.
such a buzz around him.
Yeah, he was going to direct Halo.
Yep.
He was
Yeah, it
going
was
to
the
direct
big one.
Star Wars. And he's basically kind of made the same movie, but watered down back to back now
Yep.
with
He's
Elysium
kinda-
and Chappie. But then
Mhm.
sometimes you have, because first this was what I compared it to was when I saw Whiplash, and I just
Great
was like,
movie.
so it's my favorite movie of the last 10 years, but was just being like, God, who directed this? And Damien Chazelle has gone on to prove that he is absolutely
Oh, yeah.
not just a one-trick guy there. I
He's
mean,
made
he
some
did
great stuff since.
La La Land and First Man, which La La Land is amazing. First Man I didn't love, but I was immaculately directed. I think we could have something like that with Emerald Fennell, because that movie has a look that sticks with you. Like I think Stuckman said in his review, the colors, it's like candy. That the movie, like
Yeah.
the colors pop, which is a
Yep.
really great
Same
juxtaposition.
with La La Land. La La Land's
Oh, for sure.
intense. That one's one where the colors are very intentional.
Yeah, but it's juxtaposed to what is really dark subject matter. So no, I thought that
Absolutely.
was that was a phenomenally well made movie. Yeah.
So I will kind of wrap things up with the Golden Globes, but I'll just quickly kind of rattle off. So then, obviously, if you're aware, Golden Globes splits up their Best Picture with drama and then musical or comedy. I haven't seen or even heard of the film Music. I remember looking to see what
No,
it
I
was.
hadn't either.
The Prom, I think, was some stupid Netflix movie.
Which
I don't know what that is.
they love to nominate their musicals, and sometimes
And they're usually
it's
bad.
sometimes it's justified when in the case of La La Land, and
Well,
sometimes it's not.
And they nominated Hamilton, which could be a whole nother episode debating whether you
Right.
consider that a film or not. I enjoyed it. I have it high on my list. I think
Same.
you can make the argument for it being it is a movie. It's a filmed musical
Yeah.
that they put out as a movie.
And I
so
also I'm giving it a pass this year with COVID.
there's
and
not.
everything.
I know there again. I've been working through my watch list, and a lot of stuff I've seen I've enjoyed, but not to the. There's just not as much I've enjoyed, as years, especially 2019. 2019 was an unbelievable year for movies.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
And then they have Borat. I absolutely loved the Borat sequel. I couldn't believe how good it was. I didn't expect. I thought it was gonna be pretty stupid, but what he did, and again, I don't want to get into political debates on here, but obviously that movie is very political. Both of them are, and anyone who doesn't realize that the first film is political did not even get his entire point of that movie.
It's I liked it quite a bit. I just didn't laugh as hard as I laughed in the first movie, but yeah, it's like we're at that point now where everyone loves to point fingers and point out when something is political, but it's weird how 14 years in the grand scheme of things is not that long ago, and yet
No.
the entire
It is not, but it seems like a long time ago.
the entire first Borat movie is just one massive skewering of Bush era politics. Like I mean,
And
like that's,
us and Americans, people miss that.
and the general mood of America 5 years removed from 9/11 and like how we view Borat's always been something that was steeped in political satire. So that didn't bother
But
me.
I think what people, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think what
No, go
people
ahead.
miss about the first film, because this is something we talked about YMS earlier, and YMS has a great analysis of Bruno and Borat and why the
Mhm.
reception of those two films were very different. And not getting into a conversation with Bruno, because that we could go off on another tangent with that, but with
Yeah.
Borat, I think it's kind of a movie that everyone can enjoy because people can enjoy it for its stupid quips, its
Yeah.
silly, gross out humor. And a lot of people enjoyed it for that, but they missed the context and the satire, and that the film was pointing its finger at Americans and saying,
Yeah.
"Do you not understand that this character is funny to you because this is we are playing a stereotype that you see."
Right.
And that's a lot of people miss the point of Bruno, because that was the point of Bruno too, is that he was playing into the stereotype that we see. He wasn't making fun of the stereotype. He was acting out the stereotype, which is there's a huge difference, and people miss
Right.
that. And I think with this film, with his sequel, that part wasn't as much there. It was the focus
No.
wasn't as much the gross out humor. I mean, it's still there, some of the stupidness, but the more of the focus is its political leans and its satire in terms of politics, and I think it obviously, with how divided things are politically right now, people are like, oh, you didn't do this in the first movie, and we're like, yes he did, you just weren't
Yeah,
paying attention.
right. Yeah, it was a
um,
different era. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the only other one on here that I didn't mention that I really enjoyed, a Hulu original film, was Palm Springs with Andy Samberg.
I liked that. I'm just surprised by the amount of people who've had it like on their top 10. But I thought it
Yeah,
was,
I
yeah,
have
I
it.
didn't get that. Like
I don't
I'm,
have it in my top 10.
it dropped in like June, and there were people saying this is my favorite movie of the year
Yeah,
so
I
far.
got it down to 20 right now.
Yeah, I didn't get that. But it's, yeah, it's one of those movies where I wasn't crazy about it, but I'm happy for the people involved that it's gotten such a positive reception, because I've always liked Andy Samberg.
Yeah, and I think it's a cool, it's a fun movie.
Yeah,
Pretty
and
well made, fun movie.
And I don't know if we're in the prediction game, but it's got a good shot there. Like you reading off that category, nothing. I guess maybe Hamilton stands out. I feel like it would probably be that, but after that, like I don't know if they'd give it to Borat a second time.
Yeah, because it did win before, and it's a little bit more divisive this time.
And it's also, and there is politicking involved where he's nominated for Trial of the Chicago 7 as well.
Yeah.
Do you remember I don't know, when George Clooney won his Oscar for Syriana, and he was also nominated for Best Director?
Was that
2005?
That was 2005. Okay, that's with.
And he won it. Like the first award they handed out was Best Supporting, and he went up on stage and he goes, "Well, I guess I'm not winning director now." It's like they which I thought was very funny. I think it's kind of a similar thing where they like to kind of have that balance. So yeah, I guess probably be Hamilton then. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see. Again, I don't give a lot of weight to the Golden Globes, but
no,
it usually gives a little bit of a preview to the Oscars. Usually the Oscars doesn't quite match up, literally.
It's been a while since the movie that won the Golden Globe for Best Drama won the Oscar.
The Best Picture.
Think the last time was like, it might have been Slumdog. I mean, it's been a
I'd have to go look. I wouldn't even know.
Maybe Argo. It might have been Argo was probably the last one, but
yeah.
No, they usually kind of separate at Best Picture.
The only films noticeably left off, Tenet. Left off. It got a Best Originals. Obviously, there's far more categories with the Oscars. Mm-hmm. Golden Globes gave it a Best Original Score, which the score I really enjoyed. The score.
That was awesome. Everyone's concerned with Hans Zimmer not coming back, and I thought Ludwig did.
I thought
a masterful job.
He did a great job. I mean, I wouldn't even call it an it's very much influenced by Hans Zimmer, but I didn't think it was like an imitation. I thought it was his own.
I thought he did an excellent job. Yeah.
And then the other one is, I don't know if you've seen the Amazon Prime film Sound of Metal. I thought you did a review of it. Yeah, I thought you did a review of it. Riz Ahmed did get an actor nom, but they didn't nominate that film for anything else.
Yeah, and that was the other one that I would have liked to have seen, and it got nominated for, was One Night in Miami, Regina King's.
See, and that's one for me that's going to go on my 2021 list, because its release was 2021. It was January, so
yeah, I guess I'll probably put that in 2020. But I would have liked to have seen that get a Best Drama nom. The Sound of Metal is going to be a weird one because that's a very small movie, and
but again, there's not a lot of competition.
No,
so for it to at least receive that Best Actor nod in the Golden Globes gives me kind of hope for it.
Which he deserved. He's phenomenal
he is
in
so
that movie.
Good. Yeah,
and
if you haven't seen
always
Sound of Metal, gotta check it out.
I've always liked him. I remember the first time I saw him, and I said this in my review, Nightcrawler.
Oh, yeah.
2014.
I think that might have been one of my first experiences with him as
well. That movie has one of my favorite performances ever. Gyllenhaal, like one of the top 5 Oscar snubs ever. 2014 was a stacked year in that category, but Gyllenhaal was amazing. But I do remember being like, God, who is this guy? He's kind of like sidekick in that movie that Gyllenhaal is just torturing through the whole thing.
And he has steadily done bigger and bigger, or more, at least maybe not bigger, but more noticeable. Actually, he was just in Venom. He was in,
and even which was a nothing character, but I was still like, he's
trying, he's trying.
And I liked him in Rogue One, and
I think his limited series on HBO, The Night Before,
which I think he won a Golden Globe for that.
He was great in that.
Yeah, that's going to be I'm more interested in that category for Best Actor for the Golden Globes, because more so than I am for the Oscars. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, where the Oscars like to love the good storylines. I mean, I like Scorsese with The Departed. The Departed's an awesome movie, but nobody says that's his best movie, right? But that was the year where he
Yep.
got nominated, and he'd been nominated a bunch of times, and it
So
may
he
have been the
finally
last
won.
chance, so they
Yep.
gave it to him. Christopher Plummer, when he won the Oscar for Beginners, who's like the oldest, he hadn't been nominated maybe ever before. And Chadwick Boseman is excellent in Ma Rainey. He's
Okay. Yeah.
phenomenal. And I'm confident he'll win the Oscar. Because
I Is he
sadly,
nominated
because
for the Golden Globe?
I
He's
think so,
not.
yeah.
Is
For
he?
Ma Rainey, or really, or was he maybe in supporting?
No.
Not at all.
I
Okay,
don't see him on here. No.
you see, I bet he'll get.
Nope.
I still bet the Oscars will give him something though.
I would be surprised if he did. Oh wait, I overlooked it. Nope, I'm sorry. He was
for
nominated. Best actor.
Yeah,
Best
I
actor, motion picture drama. Yeah, he did get it.
yeah, but
Because I forgot they have 4 acting categories.
right, yeah, but no, yeah, and look, if he wins, more power to him. He's great in that movie. I'm not gonna knock, but I
Yeah,
really
he
did
is.
think I thought Riz Ahmed in The Sound of Metal was a revelation in that. And but
Absolutely.
okay, who to me is maybe the biggest snub is okay, did you see The Little Things first of all?
I have not yet. I was actually, my wife and I were planning to start an HBO Max free trial this weekend because we were planning on seeing that. Her and I have been a true crime or even just crime thriller binge over the last year. So we just finished Hannibal. I've been trying to get her to watch more stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out. So I haven't had a chance to watch it.
Well,
I've heard a lot of poor reviews, which is
it's
unfortunate because I was excited to see it
it's not very good, but like Jared Leto
because I think he got nominated, didn't he?
is legitimately like awful in it. Like
I know that's what I heard people say because I
yeah,
think he got nominated.
he got nominated, but who didn't was I think it's Paul Verzi for Sound of Metal, who I thought was so heartbreaking in
a
that.
lot of people have said he is like a front runner for the Oscars. A lot of people thought he was so great.
He
for
was
best
so,
supporting
and
actor.
I'm so angry I didn't mention him in my review, but he was really the heart and soul of that movie because Riz Ahmed, as great as he is, there's a large majority of that film. I mean, you could like 90% of it where he's pretty unlikable. Even though when he's going through it, and the heart of that movie really is that
him.
character.
He's so good. Yeah,
I thought he was
great character.
He was excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're listening, you haven't seen Sound of Metal on Amazon Prime, absolutely have to check that one out.
It's
definitely one of the best of the year.
Yeah, and I said this in my review, but it's directed by the guy who wrote The Place Beyond the Pines.
Yes, another movie that I think is underrated. A lot of people don't like it that much. I love it.
I think it's excellent, but both his movies have a real like authenticity to them. Like, I'll have to look, but I really think they got actual deaf people for a large majority of that film. Yeah, I'm sure that. Yeah,
and Riz Ahmed spent months learning sign language. He actually, an interesting fact about the movie, wore sound canceling like earplugs in his ears so he could really commit to being deaf.
Yeah.
So he learned to do sign language. He learned to play the drums. He spent months doing the drums, learning sign language. It's a pretty committed performance, and most of the cast they are actually deaf. So they did hire people from the deaf community to work on that film, which is very, very commendable and makes the film feel more real. I mean, it's a very realistic film in that regard.
Yeah.
The only other 2 sections I'll mention here before we wrap up. Our best animated feature and best foreign language film. Most people listening, if you know me, I teach Spanish. I'm a big Spanish guy. So for best foreign language, I don't know if you've seen any of these nominees, Chris, but
probably not.
I always try to check out as many foreign language films as I can a year. There haven't been a lot that have been talked about this year. The big one everyone's talking about that's actually an American film, but it's in Chinese. I think it's in Mandarin, I believe, is Minari.
Okay, I got that. Yeah, and I would be stunned if that doesn't win.
And that's another one that I have not been able to see. It hasn't received an official release yet. I want to see Minari, but I'm hearing good things. The Italian film I have not seen. I did add it to my list, The Life Ahead. I think it's on Netflix, actually. And then the French film, I have not seen, Two of Us. I believe I added that to my list. I don't remember where I found it. The only 2 I have seen, and I watched them recently, was La Llorona, which is the Guatemalan entry.
Yeah,
it's a horror film. It is on Shudder. I did watch it. I enjoyed it. Didn't love it. I think it's worth checking out if you haven't seen it. But La Llorona is about, if you don't know, it's Spanish for the weeping woman, and that's a horror myth in many Latin American countries, the weeping woman. And the film focuses a lot on genocide in Guatemala and takes kind of some true story, true life elements, and turns it into more of a fantastical horror. The one that I have seen it's one of my favorite films of the year. It's in my top 5 right now, is the Danish entry with Mads Mikkelsen, Another Round. It is
Okay,
a
I've heard of that. I've heard of that one too. So
brilliant.
I've heard of more of these than I thought. Yeah.
Another Round is about it takes place in Copenhagen in Denmark, and it's these high school teachers who decide to experiment on being a certain level of drunk all the time. It's like 0.05% ABV at all times, and it's directed by the guy who did The Hunt in 2012, another film with Mads Mikkelsen that received a lot of acclaim that year. Great film. But Another Round, I rented it on Amazon Prime. It was like $5 or $6 to rent it, so definitely Another Round you should check out if you haven't. And then the last one I want to mention is Best Animated Feature, which usually is a better category with the Oscars. It's pretty crappy. The Golden Globes,
Soul and everything else.
they have The Croods. I don't know what Over the Moon is. I have no. It's
No,
an
I haven't heard.
American Chinese animated film. Never heard of it. Onward, which was okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
It was fun, but it's not a Pixar film I'll revisit. Then they have Soul, which is one of my favorites actually of the year. I loved
Yeah.
Soul
I
quite a bit.
was. I've grown. I'm so about it. I understand why people loved it, and I wish I could have.
I
connected
understand
with
why
it
some
more.
people
Yeah.
wouldn't like it as much as well.
Yeah. I think that, and it's the issue I've had with a lot of some of their recent films, even Onward, where I feel like sometimes they restrict themselves to kind of the that PG level.
It's a formula. They
Yeah,
have a
where
formula that they maintain.
yeah, it's like I think that with a lot of their movies, I feel like there's a deeper layer that they could have gone.
Soul is probably one of the most adult films they have ever made, and it could have even been
Mhm.
more so.
Yeah,
Because I don't think kids would like this movie that much. It is so heavy and deep with some of its themes,
mhm.
and I feel like some of it could have been explored even more.
Yeah,
That was one of my only knocks against it is they do kind of get to some tropes and some childish, child movie elements that aren't as good as,
yeah,
as it could have been. But
for
the
sure.
last one, and you said you don't use Apple TV Plus, but this is my argument for it, is the film Wolfwalkers. It is currently my favorite film of the year.
Really,
I absolutely loved this movie. It is from the
name sounds
same.
familiar. I'm about to look it up.
Oh yeah, it is incredible. If you have Apple TV Plus, it is an original with them. It is from the same animated studio, Cartoon Saloon. It's an small, independent Irish studio that did The Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea. They've done some other films. This one's received the most buzz. Sean Bean voices a character in it. The animation is absolutely breathtaking, jaw-dropping. Some of the most unique, traditional hand-drawn animation I've seen in an animated film in a long time, because most animated films, as we all know now, are computer-generated.
Right.
So I highly recommend and encourage anyone who has not seen Wolfwalkers on Apple TV Plus. Absolutely got to give that one a watch. So we'll kind of move on here to kind of winding things down, because Chris had told me I could get him for an hour and 15. I'm kind of getting to the max
Yeah,
here, so
I
I don't
got a
want.
little bit more time here.
I
So
will. I don't.
we're good.
We're doing okay. Okay, I didn't
Yeah,
want to. I didn't want to hold you too long here.
No, you're fine.
So that we'll kind of move on there. Last couple things I wanted to mention. So, obviously, I did talk about potential nominees for Oscars. They have released some short lists. They don't have their full nominee list out just yet. It's coming out very soon. So I figured, we can kind of wrap things up here by talking about some of our favorite films of the year. Honorable mentions. I'm not through my watch list yet. I've watched about somewhere around 70 films, and I still have a good 30 to 40 more on my watch list I want to get through before I officially, put out onto Twitter and Instagram and social media my official favorite films of 2020. So how about you? I don't know if you keep track, if you got a list going. I usually keep track on Letterboxd.
Yeah,
but-
I usually do, but I guess Promising Young Woman in Chicago 7 is 1 and 2, but I guess 2 honorable mentions, and I don't know if I would. I guess Hamilton's probably 3. The honorable mention that maybe we haven't talked about yet, I have 2. One of them is an Amazon Prime film with Joseph Gordon-Levitt called 7500, which was a bottle. It was a bottle
I
film
have
where
that on my
he
list?
plays an airline pilot
I think I remember seeing a commercial for it or something.
experiencing a hijacking, and it's. You realize right away how I really missed Joseph Gordon-Levitt in movies. I'm really glad to see
He
him
hasn't
back.
done a ton of stuff.
No, he was the last
recently.
thing he'd been. I think I saw an interview with him where he said, he went to have kids for a while and he'd been away.
Well, and
which,
he's focusing. He's had. I was reading. He's doing
Hit
some other
record.
things.
Yeah, he has the hitrecord.com
Yes.
website that he works on. But
Yep.
no, he's arguably his best performance. I mean, it is
Really?
a very tense atmospheric movie that in the vein of like Captain Phillips or United 93 really kind of grabs you and doesn't let you go. And then another one is actually a documentary that is on HBO Max, and I don't know, I think it might have gone straight to HBO, so I don't know if it qualifies for best documentary, but Class Action Park, I
Man, you
think
got
is
giving me some more movies here, man. I got to add that
yeah
to my list too.
is an
Class
excellent.
Action Park.
Yes, it's a
Class Action Park.
documentary about, and I'd known about this park before, about a amusement park in the 80s, a water park in the 80s that was essentially a death park. And the first hour of the documentary is borderline hysterical as they go through all these ridiculous injuries that people were
Oh my
experiencing,
gosh.
and how poorly run this thing was. And now ultimately, and I give the film a lot of credit because it starts off, it's very funny. It does get into the fact that like some really ugly, messed up stuff
Oh
happened
my
there. But
gosh.
I
I haven't
thought
even heard of this one. I'm gonna have to check it out.
no, I found it really endearing and well made. And you have a couple celebrity cameos. I mean, this was something in the 90s that, or in the 80s, that was like a really big thing. And I'd seen a couple videos about it before, but I thought it was very well done. So those were two honorable mentions that maybe some people hadn't seen that I thought were winners.
I'm glad you mentioned them. I just put them on my watch list.
Thank you. Yeah.
They weren't even on my watch list. Any others that you can think of or mention worth mentioning in terms of best of the year?
I'm looking back through my page right
Well,
now.
while you're looking, I'll just mention a few that we haven't talked about
ahead.
yet. A few of these we've already talked. There's a few we've mentioned, but a couple that we have not touched on. I'm a big fan of horror. I don't know if you like horror films. Horror is my favorite genre. David Cronenberg's son, who is a iconic body horror filmmaker from 80s and 90s. His son Brandon Cronenberg came out with his debut called Possessor. It is unbelievable. It is one of the most disturbing films. I mean, I would say Hereditary is up there for me for recent disturbing films that got under my skin. This one really, and it's a fascinating original film. It's a sci-fi horror film, and it's about a woman who is an assassin, and she uses brain implant technology to take control of other people's bodies to then assassinate high-profile targets.
Wow.
And it gets into some really wild psychological and body horror and some really weird imagery. If you're a horror fan, Possessor is in my top 10 right now. I loved it. You mentioned The Devil All the Time.
Yeah,
I've actually seen it 3 times. I've liked it
right?
more and more every time I've watched it.
That was one. And I knew this one happened because it was very, it kind of just snuck onto Netflix. But for supporting actor, I thought Pattinson was.
Oh my gosh, he is so creepy in that movie. It's great.
I think he's at some.
How about all the British actors in that film with the southern accents?
Skarsgård and Holland. Yeah, I know, but it's
and Welling, who played Dudley in Harry Potter.
Yeah. I think one of the better ensemble casts of the year. I guess one more, and it's not one of my favorite movies of the year, but I think in several years from now, there's going to be a lot of think pieces about kind of the COVID movies that might have slipped under the radar that might end up getting kind of a cult following.
Yep.
One that I could see gaining popularity is An American Pickle with Seth Rogen, where I
remember seeing
he plays
about that one.
a Jewish factory worker who gets stuck in a vat of pickles for like 100 years and wakes up to meet his great grandson, who's also played by Seth Rogen. And it's not a great movie. But
okay, because I think I remember hearing that people kind of panned this one or didn't like it.
But it's probably, I mean, that's a ridiculous premise, and it's better than it probably has any right to be. And like a lot of Seth Rogen projects, there's at its core, there's something about it that's very sincere. It's basically kind of a love letter to his religious background. He's born and raised Jewish, and it's a sweet film. It's not, and he's made some real winners over the last decade or so. Like I think 50-50 with Joseph Gordon-Levitt is one of my favorite movies. And but a lot of his films kind of have a nice heart to them. I could see that it's so weird that I could see that over the next several years being one that people kind of rediscover and are like, you know what, maybe we overlooked this because it's weirdly ambitious. Yeah, I
do remember seeing the negative buzz for that, but because you're recommending it, man, I'm gonna add it to my list. I'm gonna check it out. I'll check it out.
It's a fun movie. Yeah.
The only other films I got a couple more that we have not talked about that I think are worth checking out. They will be on my list. I'm thinking of Ending Things. Charlie Kaufman,
Didn't see
written,
it. Heard it was
directed.
good. Yeah.
I've seen it. Another one that's on Netflix that I've watched 3 times. It's one that you will watch it the first time and have absolutely no idea what's going on. You'll go online, you'll want to read about it, and then you'll keep coming back to it. I've come back to it 2 more times, and I really enjoy it. No nominations for Da 5 Bloods from Spike Lee on Netflix. Another film that I don't think it's Spike Lee's best film, but I think it's worth watching. I think it's worthy of some attention, and I enjoyed it. And then 2 documentaries that I think everyone should check out. Crip Camp on Netflix.
I heard that was very good.
It's
Yeah.
on the short list currently for the Oscars for best Oscar for feature documentary, and this next one is also on the short list for nominees for best documentary. It's Boys State, which is on Apple TV Plus as well. Two great documentaries that I think are well worth your time. And then I mentioned the Small Axe anthology film series. I got a couple of those in my list here, but still working through some favorites of the year. We'll see what else I get through here. I got a couple that I got to check out still, but all right, Chris. Well, I know I've kind of kept you a little bit longer than we originally said, but I've enjoyed talking. Hopefully, you've enjoyed talking. Before
I have, yeah.
Before I kind of end things here, man, anything you would like to plug?
No, I mean you're welcome to follow my YouTube page. The social media stuff, I'll probably come back to it at some point. The closer we get to baseball season, I got some write up prepared where I'm gonna kind of talk about what the plan is for that. But I'm continuing to upload on YouTube. I believe if you just put Chris Castellani into your YouTube search bar, it should be one of the first ones that comes up. I like doing those quite a bit, and I've been pretty consistent with them over the last couple months. And with the closer we get to the Oscar season, I'll probably have a few lists out and reviewing a few more critically acclaimed movies that hopefully I enjoy just as much. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. And people out there, go ahead and subscribe that channel. I'd really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, thanks for joining us. Definitely check out. I'm going to put all those links for you in the description on the YouTube. I'm going to post this. It'll be up on iTunes. Obviously, on iTunes, you won't be able to find the links, but on my YouTube posting for this, I'll put them all in the description box. So yeah, check out Chris on Twitter. Check him out on Instagram. He's got a great YouTube channel putting things out. His podcast, I will link those podcasts as well on the YouTube video for you. And then if you're listening on iTunes, then you can just make sure you go to Google, search Chris Castellani. You should be able to find him, or on any of those things. You should be able to find him on there if you search him. So I hope you join us again, man. If you can come back on another time,
sure.
Really enjoyed talking with you. I'll be back with another episode very soon. I got another guest lined up. I'm gonna talk to another person Sunday night here, and I got someone lined up for next week. So I'll have a few episodes out again soon. Until next time, I'm Vince with Chris Castellani on the Film Nerd Podcast. Thanks for joining me, Chris. And if you're listening, go watch some movies.